Major Spoilers podcast covers news, reviews, and of course spoilers, and goes into details about the topics discussed. So if you haven't read, listened, or watched the items we talk about, you might want to come back later.
I'm Matthew.
Rodrigo.
And I'm Steven, and you're listening to the Major Spoilers podcast, the podcast for pop culture and comic fans.
In this issue, Steranko. There's terror at the end of time, the Rangers are at the end of an era, and there's a monster at the end of this book. Why are you turning the page? We also check in with the Defenders of the Earth, enjoy the work of Jack Kirby, and probably fall down at least one rabbit hole. I mean, I don't know for sure, but it's about a 50-50 shot every week. So now you got to listen to the whole show to see if I'm right or wrong, because the Major Spoilers podcast, we're on the air.
Welcome to issue 1087 of the Major Spoilers podcast. Thank you for joining us this week on the show. Here in just a little bit, we're going to be talking and covering and reading the entire Steranko run of Captain America. So I got to tell you,
I can't believe we're covering the entire run.
The entire run of Jim Steranko right here on the Major Spoilers podcast. If you know, you know. You know? In the meantime, let us do a few reviews. So I am very curious about Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Darkest Hour. It is the last release of the Mighty Morphin line from Boom Studios, well, of their main storyline, because they still have a couple of other Power Rangers titles that are coming out, a couple of miniseries and one-shots still to go. But this is the big conclusion to the story with Ryan Parrott and Melissa Flores. Melissa Flores, of course, writing this one. And it's like 140 pages of comics.
It is a redonkulous amount of comics. And as much as I complain about high ticket comic book prices, 144 pages for $7.99. I mean, that's not bad. This really feels like the old school 80s annuals where they would pack just a whole lot of crazy into one issue. But it's also the end of a year-long arc for Power Rangers. Now, I don't know if the Boom continuity is ending or if Boom no longer has a.
I don't think that they have really super announced it. There was some stuff mentioned at San Diego Comic-Con. Maybe one of our listeners can fill us in. But there's also something big going on with the toy line, because that has now been, my understanding, licensed out to someone else. And there apparently is right now no Power Rangers show in production, because there was all this week on Twitter, people are just like, oh, here's the next Power Rangers show. And it's just a black screen, and people are really going off on Power Rangers. And it may be in response to Darkest Hour coming out, but I haven't seen anything from Boom that says, hey, here's our next big thing with Power Rangers. So this may be it and gone.
It's entirely possible, because the way I understand it, Hasbro plans to do something new and fresh and different, not based on Super Sentai. We'll see if that works. As you said, this one written by Melissa Flores, illustrated by Simona de Jean-Felice, which is such fun to say. And it, when you say provides closure, you may say to yourself, what does that mean exactly? So when I say this provides closure, when the opening scene of this book features characters from all across Power Rangers mythos. So one of the characters from the last Power Rangers series, the Cosmic Fury, is here. People from the Mystic Force, Tanya from Zeo. All of these characters are in play. And Lord Zed has managed to become a Ranger. He has his own Ranger form and is now fighting with Zordon, alongside Zordon, not the way he's always been fighting with Zordon. It's very interesting because it also brings in the Power Rangers Hyperforce team. I don't know if you're familiar with Hyperforce, but Hyperforce started out as like a live play RPG podcast of Power Rangers, the Hyperforce team. And their story gets closure in here. We get to see closure for Jason, the original Red Ranger, who in Boom continuity also left the team, not the way he left over money in the comics, but this literally is the Darkest Hour. The Morphin grid is compromised, there are approximately 25 or 30 Rangers left who aren't compromised by the Morphin grid, and everybody else is working for the villain. So everybody we see, all of the characters that we know, are actually fighting their own friends, having to fight their teammates, their girlfriends, in certain cases, having to go and fight and fight and fight, and in one case, possibly kill their significant other. But the real focus of this book, this particular arc, is Billy the Blue Ranger, which is great because Billy doesn't get as much, especially in post Power Ranger stuff, doesn't get as much development. I will say this: I do not want to spoiler the ending here, but if you've been reading the Boom Studios books, if you've read things, the Shattered Grid crossover that introduced the Solar Rangers, if you remember that for a while, Skull was dating a girl who turned out to be another planet, or from another planet, not literally another planet. It's not like he's dating Unicron. If you remember the fact that Dark Spectre is currently possessing a body that used to belong to a man named Zordon, all of that stuff does come into play. And it also does some things that I consider to be bizarre and not necessarily inexplicable, but fun in a super, super deep cuts kind of way. There's an implication in this issue that replacement Rangers, Rocky and Adam, Rocky and Adam may be in a relationship. We do get a cool scene where Tommy and Jason, who have no powers, are fighting together and talking about maybe they should go out for protein shakes afterwards. There are bits in here for any Power Rangers fan. If you are not a Power Rangers fan, this is a big explosive comic book. It's going to be filled with tons of characters. If you are a Power Rangers fan, and I am, I don't guarantee that you're going to actually recognize everybody in these pages. For me, that is a huge plus. You can decide for yourself whether that's a negative for you. And it does focus and end with Billy the Blue Ranger. It gives Billy closure for like the third time in the last 4 or 5 years, which I think may have something to do with David Yost, the actor, actually finally coming back to Power Rangers after almost literally being bullied out of acting. But here's the thing you need to know. I was satisfied. I was impressed with how good this looked. And even an $8 price tag can't knock this down too far. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Darkest Hour #1. I'm giving it 4.5 slices of meatloaf. It asks, can they rebuild everything they've lost? And the answer that they give us is perfect to that question. And I will leave you with that.
I think 144 pages at $8. That's a pretty good deal right there.
That is a very good deal.
That is a good price there. This is why I'm not, because Boom, I was expecting them to announce a bunch of stuff at San Diego Comic-Con, but the stuff that they talked about is stuff that we already know about. Like August this month, Power Rangers Infinity kicks off, which looks like that comes out of the, what imprint is this one? It just comes right out of the Boom Studios imprint, so it's not YA, but this feels very much like a anime-inspired magical girl kind of series. Rodrigo, you may like it because it looks like there's a giant polar bear as one of the Rangers, so you can check that out. That comes out August 21st. And then they had the announcement that there will be an anthology series ? Called Power Rangers Across the Morphin Grid. They don't say it's an anthology, but they don't say if it's a one-shot or if it's an ongoing. They just call it Power Rangers Across the Morphin Grid. That comes out, I want to say in October. It comes out October 30th, 2024. But they have not announced anything after that. The other thing that's really weird about this announcement is Boom has not said, hey, our license is up or anything like that. Everything having to do with this run of Power Rangers says the end of an era, right? Which implies that, and I've always taken it this way until I see something different, that there's another series that they're going to reboot. This has been a very popular series for Boom Studios, And providing that, their contract isn't up and didn't get renewed, which I would find really hard to believe, but who knows what Hasbro is doing right now with Power Rangers. This seems to be like a good thing for them to do.
I did find something in June of this year, discussing how Netflix has passed on the ongoing Power Rangers series, which that's where Cosmic Fury, the 10 episodes of Cosmic Fury had dropped. And that was, to my understanding, where Hasbro was going to put their first season of This Is All Our Rangers, Nobody Else's Rangers, la 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 la, you can't hear me. So I'm not sure if that means that they're on hiatus or I don't know.
Yeah, who knows what Netflix is doing. So there you go. I'm going to bet that in 2025, a few short months from now, we will for sure know what's going on with the Power Rangers. And it would not surprise me if there is some kind of a relaunch having to do with the Super Sentai based Rangers. So be on the lookout for that. So many people who have listened to the show or watched any of the things that we have done on Major Spoilers, especially our YouTube channel, Major Spoilers Video, have watched for years as I have played a lot of the Arkham Horror games put out by Fantasy Flight Games and Asmodee. Well, announced a couple of months ago, Dark Horse Comics, in conjunction with Asmodee and Fantasy Flight, have tapped Cullen Bunn and Andrea Mutti to bring a comic book adaptation about that Arkham Horror setting to life, so to speak. And so out this week, Arkham Horror, The Terror at the End of Time, #1, follows the adventures of Jenny Barnes. And for those of you that don't play any of the Arkham Horror games and are not familiar with the characters, Jenny Barnes, I think, was one of their very first characters that they introduced into this Arkham Horror universe, going all the way back to Arkham Horror 1.0 or whatever it was. She is a socialite who has lost her sister to something, ? Supposedly mysterious dark forces with Cthulhuoids. And her main deal is she is trying to find her sister. She does team up with Joe Diamond, another of the Arkham Horror Fantasy Flight characters, and she has hired him to help her find her sister, Izzie. And so they go on a quest in this issue to try and find out what's going on. It may end with ghouls, and it may end with cults. So just be aware of that. I really like the Arkham Horror series. Fantasy Flight has a number of novels and novellas that are also set in the world of Arkham Horror and featuring these characters, including Jenny Barnes and Joe Diamond and all the other favorites that you love. I think some of the books that they have released work really, really well. Others are like, I didn't really care for that one as much. And so I was very interested in getting my hands on this one. I think that Cullen Bunn is a fantastic writer. He is also a very busy writer. I think he's got like 3 or 4 books out this week alone through a variety of, like, I think Mad Cave and maybe Marvel. He has something, I don't remember, but he's got a lot of stuff on the fires. And so I get very excited when I see a Cullen Bunn book. Oh, I know, Matthew, you just reviewed a Cullen Bunn book that came out last
Gotcha
week.
Man.
Yeah, Gotcha Man. That's it, from Mad Cave. And so, I get very excited about reading his stuff. I also like when Cullen Bunn can do things without having a lot of oversight. And unfortunately, I think this first issue feels like Fantasy Flight / Asmodee had a lot of oversight on what was going on, because there are parts of this issue that feel very jarring. Like, if this is supposed to be a mystery, if this is supposed to be this noir tale, I expect people to make some clues going from point A to point B, and it just feels like they're jumping from A to D without going through the middle parts of the story. And there's also not a whole lot of character development going on in here. So really, if you know the characters of Jenny Barnes, if you know Joe Diamond, you know instantly what their stories are, so you don't need a lot of character development. But because this is Cthulhu related, and because this is at Dark Horse, I have a feeling that there's a potential for a lot of other people who have never played the game to want to come on board. And I feel like maybe a little bit more explanation and a little bit more lead up to the big reveal at the end of the issue with the ghouls might have helped this book out. The art is fine. I really don't have a problem with the art. I think I would have liked to have seen a little bit more definition, but it's cool. The cover is probably the most stunning part of the issue, with Jenny being wrapped around by tentacles as she stands there. It's very cool. So cool, in fact, that who is it? It's one of the 3D printing sites has released a bunch of Fantasy Flight STL files that you can purchase and print. And this is in conjunction with Fantasy Flight and everything. And one of the bonus things that you get is a statue based on this cover that you can print out. So this is all licensed and approved through Fantasy Flight. So I think for people that are Arkham Horror fans, and especially people who like this cover and you'd like to see that in statue form, there is a 3D version of this that you can download, purchase and download and print out yourself and then paint. Is this a good book? I don't know. I enjoyed it to a point, but at the end I felt kind of dissatisfied. Like I felt like I was missing something. There was something in this piece. You know, like when you have a good steak dinner, you've got your steak, you've got your mashed potatoes, and you have some kind of other vegetable with it. This felt like that some other vegetable was missing. The steak and the mashed potatoes by themselves are really, really good, but you can't help but leave the table going, well, did I miss something? Did they not bring out one of the servings that they were supposed to? And that's kind of how I feel about this first issue. Am I in for the entire series?
Where's my asparagus?
Yeah, exactly. Where's the asparagus for my steak? I kind of felt like this through here. I am totally on board with the entire series, but I feel like maybe the start wasn't as good as it could have been. Maybe, and I have nothing that says otherwise, except I've seen how other IPs are handled. I just get the feeling that there was maybe some meddling as far as you have to do this and you have to do this and change this. And that makes the issue feel kind of weird. Still, I'm going to give it 4 slices of meatloaf or steak or asparagus or whatever. But we aren't going to include the peach cobbler at the end because, you know, something's missing here. 4 slices of meatloaf out of 5 for Arkham Horror, The Terror at the End of Time #1, out this week from Dark Horse Comics. Both of these books, both Mighty Morphin, Darkest Hour, and Terror at the End of Time, you can pick up a copy for yourself. You can get it in physical form, or if you want to get a digital version, because, you know, those comic books do stack up over time if you're a collector. You can get a digital version by using the links in the show notes. It takes you over to our Amazon affiliate page. We get like literally pennies if you make a purchase through there. But, you know, we get 100 of you, 1,000 of you, 2,000 of you going and buying comics or other things through that Amazon affiliate link. Hey, we might actually be able to afford a steak dinner. Not 4 steak dinners, a steak dinner. More on that in just a little bit. Rodrigo, speaking of Mad Cave Studios, which I just mentioned a moment ago, Defenders of the Earth is back again.
Again, now under the Mad Cave Studios. So this book opens on the year is 2020, and as you guys know, back in 2020, the planet Mongo invaded the Earth and very nearly destroyed everyone, up until a hero rose up and did something intense, and that ended the war right then and there. I don't want to spoil it. Although, I don't know if this is like picking up from wherever the last series was.
I think it's picking up from the Free Comic Book Day issue.
Yeah. So, we then leap forward to a time after the war is over, and we actually spend the majority of the issue following Flash Gordon's kid, Jiminy Gordon. No, Rick Gordon. He is talking to somebody, but we don't know at first, and then eventually we figure out the person he's on the phone. The person he's talking to is LJ, aka Lothario's son, or Lothar.
Lothar Jr.
Yeah, Lothar Jr. You'll have to forgive me because if I say somebody's name in a weird way, that's because I used to watch Defenders of the Earth in Spanish.
In Spanish.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I can see that happening.
You know, the Defenders of the Earth. Flash Gordon.
Sí.
El Fantasma. Mandrake, and Lotario. So this issue is very much set up. It's kind of telling you where all the characters are, both physically where they're at and where they're going. Like, for example, Lothar wants to go back to the Seven Nations, right? To like that super uh future African, like
Yeah.
Pan-African,
Mhm.
block.
Yeah.
He was I forget what he was basically the president and he had to abdicate. So yeah, it's like that's where he's going. Mandrake has something else he wants to do. Phantom has something else he wants to do, and everybody's like, "Hey, the Phantom, don't you want to go back to Africa?" And he's like, "Yeah, I got other stuff I need to do first." And then we see the Phantom, but it's not the same Phantom. There's
Uh-oh.
multiple Phantoms, and I'll leave it at that. You can figure out in this issue, you'll be able to figure out who the other Phantom is. But yeah, it's interesting. It's worth reading. I always hope anytime they do a new Defenders of the Earth thing, that they will do what the Defenders of the Earth did and grab a bunch of generally unrelated characters and add some people to the Defenders of the Earth. Like literally all of the characters from Project Superpowers, that was the whole deal, right? They were in the public domain. Nowadays, they can straight up add Steamboat Willie Mickey Mouse to the Defenders of the Earth. At least I think that's what the backstory of the Defenders of the Earth is, right? That they were like
they were all owned by
into
Kingfisher Syndicate,
Mhm.
but were otherwise unrelated previously.
Oh, okay. So that was my mistake then. I thought that they were specifically supposed to be out of the public domain. That's probably where the Defenders of the Earth cartoon got made in the first place.
Yep.
Is to keep them from slipping into the public domain.
Yep.
Anyway, they should add Steamboat Willie because he's the reason why anybody's making any money off of Defenders of the Earth nowadays.
I am curious, how the writing is with this, because even though Dan DiDio left DC Comics, he did do, I think, one issue of Nightwing or something in 2022. He is supposedly in charge or as the publisher for Frank Miller Presents, but I don't know if I've seen anything from that. So this is kind of Dan DiDio's first post DC comic.
Yeah. It's mostly like a lot of this is conversation, which I feel is like one of DiDio's strong points. Like he makes people sound like people. Yeah. So this creative team, Dan DiDio and Jim Calafiore, is like is like prestigious, right? I, as always, went right in without looking at it, and when I saw the names attached to it, I was like, oh, they're going all out for Defenders of the Earth, I guess. But there was nothing in here where I thought like, oh, this guy doesn't sound like the Phantom, It's only one issue. It's hard to tell how the arc is going to go. As far as pacing, it feels like it has a deliberately small pace. You start before the time jump with a lot of action, and then afterwards, it's like characters kind of turning themselves in the direction that they're going to go before, of course, the plot inevitably shoves them all back together, right? So it didn't seem like it does seem slow. It's a comic that has kind of a slow pace, but it's setting everything up, right? It has a lot of exposition to get through. It doesn't have any characters be like, yes, hello, Richard, my son. I mean, he does refer to Flash Gordon as his father, but it's all it's all done through like natural language, there's no like editors boxes or anything. So the comic does give itself some time to get where it's going, right? Which is not a bad thing. And I don't know, I don't, for some reason, even though they are superheroes in a sense, I don't go looking for super fast-paced action out of Defenders of the Earth. Maybe it's because they're older heroes or heroes from an older time, I expect a kind of more slow, methodical plot. Also, because any of these characters I probably first encountered as like newspaper comic strips.
Right.
So it's like, well, those those adventures move at an absolute snail's crawl. So I didn't expect this to go very fast. I think it's pretty good. I enjoyed it. Definitely an above average book. I'm going to give it 3.5 slices of meatloaf, and I'm looking forward to picking up the next one.
Very cool. Very cool. I was curious on how it would read. Certainly, people. Dan Didio has an interview on YouTube where he's talking about Defenders of the Earth, and so maybe this is Dan coming back and wanting to do something long term. And certainly, I think Mad Cave and King Features have teamed up because they're also doing a Flash Gordon series, and
Right.
I forget what else. There's something in the back of the book that shows you the whole layout of all of the comics that they have coming up. But Flash Gordon, Defenders of the Earth, and something else. Maybe another Phantom series. I don't know. Maybe coming our way in the future.
There is a Phantom. There's a Phantom like video game coming soon.
Oh, okay. Well, that'll be interesting.
Okay, let's see. Flash Gordon ongoing series, Defenders of the Earth, Flash Gordon Quarterly, and then collections and original graphic novels is the stuff that they have listed.
Okay.
And then they have May through December of this year.
All right, cool. Yeah, so go pick that up. Unfortunately, there is not an Amazon link for that, but hey, get out, touch some grass, visit your local comic shop. Thank you to everyone who supports this show and all the shows at the Major Spoilers Podcast Network. This week, we are sending a very special thank you out to Robert Babo Hayes. I think that is how you say his name. Robert is our newest gold member. Thank you, Robert. Not only does he get access to the pre-show, also gets up to 4 exclusive shows per week, including access to Critical Hit a week early, the GM Roundtable, and a whole lot more, including all the character sheets. If you're down for character sheets, at the gold level, we dropped a whole bunch of character sheets this week for you. But listen, times are tight for you. You still want to sample some of the posts. Maybe you want to see what kind of exclusive we're releasing. You can go to our Patreon page at patreon.com/major spoilers, and you can sign up for free. Now, you don't get access to the pre-show. You don't get access to the stuff that is out a week early. But if we do post something that we decide that we want to release for free, for example, the Major Spoilers Book Club is something that you can access right now for free. This week, we just released the one for July. It was Dr. Brad Will and I talking about the first 15 lives of Harry August. We've done that 3 times already. In the month of August, we are doing We Are Legion, We Are Bob. If you want to be part of that, you need to jump into our Discord to share your thoughts about it. But you can listen to the book club, the monthly book club, for free when you sign up over at patreon.com/major spoilers. But of course, our costs are always increasing. Our server costs jumped $100. We are still trying to replace this stupid laptop that is about to crash. So if you have a few bucks, and hey, if you've watched the news cycle over the last couple of days, people are rolling in money because they're so excited about some of the news that has come out. So maybe kick a few bucks our way and allow Major Spoilers to continue far into the future. And don't let those big, greedy corporate overlord pigs win out in the end. Keep us independent and let people know that you appreciate independent podcasts by going to patreon.com/major spoilers. As promised at the top of the show, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to talk Captain America, and more importantly, the entire Jim Steranko run of Captain America. All 3 issues of it.
Well, he only did 2 issues of X-Men, so this is a step
I know,
up.
it's really weird because people are like, oh my gosh, the Jim Steranko's defining moment on Captain America. You have to read these books. I'm like, okay, how many? Is it like 12 issues? Is it like, did he do like a whole year or 2 years worth of stuff? He did 3 issues, and in between that is a Jack Kirby Stan Lee story. And it's like, okay. So we are reading essentially the story arc of Tomorrow You Live, Tonight I Die, which features Steve Rogers, who has been at this point in time 67, I want to say is when this came out, 68?
1968, yeah.
Yeah, so at the time...
Early 69.
Yeah, in 68, Steve Rogers is out as Captain America. People know that Steve Rogers and Captain America are the same person, which, as you might expect, cause a lot of problems if you're Steve Rogers just walking down the street and the forces of Hydra decide to jump out and try to kill you. This sees Steve Rogers and what's his name? The
Rick Jones.
Rick Jones teaming up to be the new Captain America and Bucky. Specifically, Rick Jones becomes Bucky in this issue. But at the same time, we also get to see the death of Captain America. Dun, dun, dun.
Back before,
this is the first time
everybody was really crazy about it.
Yeah, no, this is the first time that I've read this little arc, because it's, from what I could tell, it's only collected if you get it in one of the big omnibuses with like 30 other issues. This is not a standalone thing that I could find. So it's like you do have to go and track down the original issues, whether that be on Marvel Unlimited or in other places. But this is such a short little story that I was amazed how much they covered in this.
Really, and I want to say that it's in one of the Captain America Epic collections, which is still enormous, but a little less expensive than like an omnibus or a Marvel Masterworks edition.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's essentially Captain America 110 through 113, if you want to check. And technically it's 110, 111, and 113, because as I mentioned, Captain America dies, and so we have to do a whole tribute issue to the death of Captain America.
That is actually a fill-in. Steranko missed his deadline, and Stan literally said, "Who's the fastest guy I know?" And so they got Jack Kirby and George Tuska. Yeah, Kirby and Tuska put together the issue, and really, 112 kind of bothers me, because if you read them in order, issue 100, the first issue of Captain America in the modern era, taking off from Tales of, I'm going to say Suspense. I'm probably wrong. It may actually be the other one, but 100 is one of those. Here's the entire history of Captain America. 12 issues later, they're like, "Oh crap! Steranko didn't turn it in. What are we going to do? Let's do the entire history of Captain America."
And so that's one of the things when I read this issue and realized, oh, it's Jack Kirby. That's interesting that he's doing this, and then it made me wonder. Okay, besides the part where Iron Man is like, "Oh no, Steve, my best friend, let us roll back the tapes and see what happens." I was wondering if all of these other panels were previous art by Jack Kirby with new dialogue over the top.
It is new art, but it features almost exclusively characters created by Kirby. When he and Joe Simon were doing the original run of Captain America back in 41, 42, 43. So when you go through and you see, oh, it's the Butterfly. Nobody's ever heard of the Butterfly, but Jack Kirby co-created him.
Yeah.
No one's ever heard of any of these guys.
Yeah. Zemo.
Yes. Okay. Zemo. Yes. But I'm looking through this and I'm like, Captain America's rogue gallery has never been, because a lot of superhero rogue galleries just kind of are not that impressive, but also no one has given them a glow up like they did with the Flash. Right. And like with the Flash, they were like, okay, his villains kind of suck. Let's play into that and throw some pathos into it or whatever.
Yeah, I like it because it's like, the time that he defeated the Red Skull, and then you get a big 2-page story on that, and then it's just a montage of the bludgeoning butterfly, and the ringmaster of evil, and the legion of beggars, and the White Death, and finally the macabre Toad Man. And it's just like, oh, okay, I know all of those guys.
Sure,
and that's why I asked if this was, maybe a, they just grabbed a bunch of previous Jack Kirby stuff and just kind of retweet.
They actually they drew new stuff here.
I mean, that's really cool. I mean, it is Jack Kirby stuff, so if you want to see it, it's great.
If you go through that issue 112, you notice a lot of full page spreads, or 4 panels or 2 panels. Kirby usually does more 6 and 9 panel grids than that. And it doesn't feel like the art is rushed by any means, but it's clearly, if you look at Kirby stuff of the same era, it's designed to go, oh, I gotta fill 18 pages here. And I kind of love that big shot of Submariner standing and looking back, but it's also, that's a story that at that point is literally like 4 years old. So it's interesting to see them doing that. It's interesting to see this page. And then, we have that one beautiful, beautiful splash page where he's standing on the hood of a car for some reason.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense, but my gosh, it's good looking.
Yeah. All right. So we're supposed to be talking about Jim Steranko. And I will say this about Steranko art. His poses are dynamic, but also highly improbable.
Crazy. Yeah. Steranko is the only person in the history of Marvel Comics to draw the Hulk as tall and slim and really still terrifying.
Yeah, I like this version of the Hulk.
So do I.
I was going to say, just because it's like just starting point because it's different, but second, it like seems like a big, it seems like they cast a different actor and they're just acting the heck out of it. Mm-hmm. They're like, oh yeah, you like the Hulk? Well, check this out.
Yeah, he's like a 7.5 foot tall monster, and he's screaming constantly and throwing. It just,
but even when you see Captain America after Steve Rogers changes into his costume and he's running, across that panel, it's like that's not how bodies move unless somebody's got hip dysplasia and are about to lose a knee. It's just, in fact, all of his action poses, again, super dynamic. But again, just a few pages later, Captain America is running off the line of a football, offense, and he's all stooped over and stuff. It's like, that's not how a person runs. It's just, it's crazy and it's wild, and it had me enthralled the entire time.
Yes. This is just some beautiful storytelling. And one of my big complaints in the Marvel Universe has always been that they prettied up the Viper, because that first shot where we see Madame Hydra and she's standing there and staring at the screen, and we have the Hydra thing behind her, and it's all this weird Alfred Hitchcock Vertigo craziness. That is one of the most memorable, beautiful shots in Silver Age Marvel for me. And the fact that they took away the facial scar that makes her wear her Veronica Lake hair like that, literally, this is the reason. This page is why I'm mad at Marvel for fixing the Viper's face. So, this is an incredibly short run, but it's so influential and it's so memorable that I literally remember. I probably haven't picked up any of my Captain America comics in 5-6 years. I remember sequences, panels. I remember specific moments from these 3 issues in a way that I don't remember a comic that I read, 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I remember. So there's so much stuff in here, and I don't know if it was Steranko or what, but who did the art in Learn to Draw Comics the Marvel Way?
That was John Romita.
Okay.
I believe.
Because there are just so many poses that I remember from that, especially Captain America poses from that book, that these images here make me instantly think of me trying to draw Captain America from that book all those years ago.
My bad. It was actually John Buscema, not John Romita. But a different great Marvel artist.
Yeah.
Is also in the business,
But the other thing that I found interesting about the Steranko art is it's got a bunch of like hyper detail, almost like what you see with Kirby, like when he does his Fourth World stuff, and like all the machinery and all the stuff has all these noodly bits and little filigrees and nurnies and greeblies and all that stuff all over the place. When you look at some of the tech that Hydra has throughout these couple of issues, and especially like on every issue that Steranko does in this 4-issue arc, has a double page splash. And those double page splashes are just insane with like the weapons and the armor and the clothing that everyone has, that I don't know if Steranko had any influence from Kirby or not, but you look at like that first double page splash where Bucky and Cap are fighting Hydra in the sewer system, and you're like, oh yeah, that machinery could easily be something that Kirby would come up with, or, those weapons being fired are such classic, what I would consider classic Marvel weapons. And maybe they just came out of the few times that Steranko was drawing Marvel comic stuff.
It could be, because Steranko's first stuff at Marvel, at least the first stuff that I remember, so there may be an asterisk on this, was when he picked up the Nick Fury series, when Kirby stopped doing it in 66, maybe, because Captain America and Nick Fury shared the pages of either Tales of Suspense or no, it was Suspense, because Suspense, yes, okay. Tales of Suspense was Nick Fury and Captain America at that point in time. And Steranko kind of did like a super Kirby thing when he was doing Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. And then here it's like he's taking, this is the influence of Kirby, because Kirby is, the foundation of Silver Age Marvel. But he's also taking elements of your Don Heck. He's taking elements of Steve Ditko. He's taking elements of, Gil Kane, and putting them together into something that he's kind of just like supercharged into this. Literally, it is something entirely new and crazy. And you're right, it's all impossible, because there's one sequence in 113 where Cap is fighting like 20 Hydra guys, and he's standing on a heap of Hydra guys, and he's got one held over his head, and it looks like it should be, if it's not a statue. But if you start to look at that and go, where's the ground for all these characters? It's impossible. But Captain America looks perfectly natural, even though there's no human being who has ever been built like that. It's like he's super muscular, but within the nomenclature, within like the visual language of this, it's just so perfect. And there's something, and I think it's in 111, that is actually literally a riff on Alfred Hitchcock. And I want to say Bucky starts having a hallucination, and it's a riff, I think, on Vertigo. But I looked at that, and yeah, it's where Bucky is running towards like the end of this weird.
He's got the Hydra has drugged him, or they thought that they were drugging Steve Rogers, but instead they got Bucky. I wonder, Rodrigo, what you thought of the writing in this, because this is very 60s Marvel. We don't have walls of text like we see in like Spider-Man and other places, but there are times where they're just like
shotgun blast.
I have jumped behind. They don't show Captain America jumping behind a bar at the arcade, but he's like, or somebody says, he's jumped behind the bar at the arcade, and then we're cutting to him behind the bar at the arcade as it's being shot up. So I wonder what you think about the writing here.
That I don't mind so much, right? It's like, I get it. Like, you only have so much space to tell a story. Like, somebody, if you're not showing it, somebody being like, look, he has jumped behind the bar, is not as bad as what I feel we got from a lot of like Spider-Man and Daredevil comics, where it's like Spider-Man jumps over the bar and then he says, I need to jump over the bar so that I can get cover from this gunfire, right?
And there's a text balloon that says, suddenly and possibly Spider-Man jumps over the bar.
Exactly. So that's a bigger problem for me. It does feel very wordy compared to modern comics, but I don't know. I didn't feel like it really overstayed its welcome. I'm not going to say that it only conveyed relevant information, because it didn't. It conveys a lot of description that you do see right there on the panel. Or just kind of like zhuzhing up what's happening, right? It's like Captain America is like jumping over a guy and punching a different guy, and it's like, and Captain America leaping into action, blah, blah, blah. So it's like a lot of it could have gone away, but in general, I didn't get as exhausted of this writing the way that I have with other writers.
Yeah. I think that there were times where, and I don't know if this was intentional from the very beginning, if Steranko was like, oh yeah, I'm going to kill Captain America, and everyone's like, oh cool, yeah, neat. We're going to, supposedly in quotes kill him because now he goes undercover because he does a cool, clever trick of wearing a mask. And people are like, who was it? If it wasn't Steve Rogers, who was it?
Under your mask.
Yeah. But so I don't know if this was planned from the very beginning or if this is a Steranko thing where he is just like describing an action and we don't get to see the action. And part of me was like, oh, this is just a cop out because he doesn't want to show Captain America doing this. He just wants to get to the after effects of that to the next page. But then you get to the part where Captain America dies and you've got, 4 panels of Rick Jones saying, "Oh my gosh, he took a hail of bullets," and Hydra agent Bob screaming, he's done. And you got Madam Hydra going, "Oh, let's get rid of the body quick because the police are here." And the police are like, "Oh no, we're here too late." And then they're fishing the costume out of the body, or the costume out of the river. And you're like, what a cop out. We could have seen Steve Rogers getting hit by a hail of bullets or whatever. But then you realize, oh no, this not showing the action was part of the suspense that was letting you go, oh, this is how Captain America is so smart. So that when you get to 113 and you're suddenly like, oh, okay, he had a mask under his mask, and this is his way of becoming a secret hero again, or a masked hero again, and getting a secret identity back, then all of that makes sense. But for the longest time, I was just like, man, this is a cop out.
Well, and there is some, I don't know if I would call it like controversy, but there's some question about the writing of this, because Steranko has always said he wrote it. Stan Lee is credited as co-creator in the original issues, but not his normal credit. Stan Lee's normal credit would be Stan Lee writer, and then you'd have a penciler, maybe an inker. But Steranko has said he wrote all of this, and I want to say that Marvel actually collected it at one point and said this was the writing work of Jim Steranko, which, having read other things that Steranko has done, I kind of feel like he writes things as he draws them, if that makes any sense. His primary, not that he's not a writer artist, not that it's not a synthesis, but he puts the images in place, and the images do what they do.
Yeah, kind of like that Marvel method.
I think there was an expectation that Jim would be on Captain America longer. But speaking of Marvel method, this is one of the first times, and maybe the first time in a Marvel comic, where we actually have pages that are all one man's work. Those double page spreads are drawn and inked and colored and lettered by Steranko.
And we know that for sure, because there are other, inkers and letterers listed in the issues.
Yes, we do know that for sure. That's actually something that Marvel has confirmed. And that's, another one of those things. The big one in 113, where he's flying in on the motorcycle and leaping into the graveyard.
Yeah.
And you look at that. Yeah. That whole thing is, I just realized that's the corpse of the Vision. Sorry, I just had a moment. That whole thing is Jim Steranko's work. And that's something that I'm actually looking at this in the Epic collection. So I did not download the ones that were on the thing, because I was like, oh yeah, I can totally go to my Epic collection. Ha ha! But it's a whole thing.
Why did Steranko stop doing Captain America?
I don't know. And I think, and again, this is one of those things that's based on hearsay and, Wikipedia and things that Jim has said. And of course, I'm not saying he's a self-promoter. I am saying that when anybody says anything about comics and says, this is totally what happened to you guys, I go, okay. But I believe, and I've heard interviews with him saying that it was great doing the books, but compared to his work in like commercial art, it was peanuts. So he wasn't getting paid as much as he would to do like movie posters and layouts and all of the things that he had been doing before he came to comics. So that I can totally believe.
Yeah. Steranko's still alive, 85 years old.
Yep.
And
Claims
still
he doesn't eat.
looking fabulous still.
Yes, I don't know how he does it. I honestly think that somewhere in an attic, there's a picture of Jim Steranko looking old and decrepit, and the real Jim just wanders around, go doop 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 doop.
Yeah. Rodrigo, I'm curious what you thought about this whole thing as a whole, four issues, including the Kirby Lee flashback issue.
Well, the Kirby flashback was kind of hilarious, because even being familiar with some of these guys, like that first page of like villains, I didn't know any of those guys.
Yeah.
I never read anything with them, and I thought they were making them up right then and there, which would have been fun, right? If they were like, remember when Captain America fought the Gargoyle Syndicate, right? And it's like, no, but sure. As far as the Steranko stuff, I thought it was fine. I was annoyed at the end of it at the fact that everything I had read was basically just there to restart Captain America and be like, okay, he has a secret identity again. Because it always annoys me when that happens. Like, I get that there's stories that you can write and stories that you can't write with a secret identity, and sometimes a new team comes in and they want to have a secret identity. But that's actually one of the things that really annoys me about comics, is that, anytime you have the character's life advance and the things that happen impact their actual lives, it gets undone in one way or another, right? Sometimes in an in continuity way, sometimes as just like a pure retcon. So by the end of this, I was reading and I was like, oh, this is like so that Mephisto doesn't have to steal his wife or whatever.
Okay. Tony Stark doesn't have to wipe everybody's mind with
right. God,
yeah. So it looks like. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say this is because Dr. Light did something really bad.
Yeah. Let's see. You can find this in the Marvel Masterworks edition from 2006.
Yes, can be.
There is also a Penguin Classics Marvel collection published in 2022. I say that this is the Tonight I Live, Tomorrow You Die, or whatever it is. This is actually called The Strange Death of Captain America, is how the art is, or the arc is listed as. And I don't see anything on the wiki page for this talking about why Steranko left Captain America after this, except maybe some writing dispute issues. So
it's definitely possible. And, when you do look at Steranko's Marvel work, it is incredibly brief. He did, 3 issues of Captain America. He did 2 issues of X-Men. I want to say, and I can't remember now, I want to say he did like a single issue of Tower of Shadows. And there was some issue of, he left Marvel, I believe, because of what he believed to be editorial meddling in a story he had written for Tower of Shadows, which was one of the last of Marvel's horror books. But if you look and, you actually look at how many comic books Jim Steranko wrote at Marvel, it's like 25, 26 books. So he's got his run of Strange
But he does
Tales.
he did the whole Nick Fury thing, right?
Yeah, that was before this. He did the Strange Tales run. Then he did bits and pieces of the Nick Fury Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. Volume 1. That book rolled out of Strange Tales, and I want to say that he did some illustrations for Friends of Old Marvel, the Foom book. But, if you look at just these 3 issues, it is kind of stunning to me that these 59 pages of comics are it's so incredibly influential on Captain America.
Yeah. So then the question then, as you give your final thoughts, many people list The Strange Death of Captain America as one of the 10 best Captain America stories of all time.
Yes. Top 3 for me. I want to say that I would put the Secret Empire saga number 1 because he beats up Nixon. And then after that, I would say the arc where he gives up being Captain America. John Walker comes in, and we find out what happens when you give a crazy idiot white nationalist power and a shield. And then I want to say this is number 3 for me. This is just really incredible. And the thing about it is, I don't want to say this in a way that sounds mean. I don't like, air quotes, Jim Steranko's art style. Like, I will sit and I'll stare at a Gil Kane panel, or I'll stare at a Nick Cardy panel and be just like, this is beautiful. This is gorgeous. I look at this and I have that same thing that you do. I'm like, people don't bend like that in the real world. And then the rest of my brain goes, but who cares? This is Steranko
cool.
world.
Yeah. It looks
Yeah,
cool.
it looks so cool. It's so amazing. And, this is really the turning point for Rick Jones. Rick Jones went from being a minor bit player in Hulk to being everywhere in the Marvel universe. This is foundational for Rick Jones. This is transformational for Captain America. This is, the Viper, I feel like, is one of the great creations, Madam Hydra, whatever it is. So in a lot of ways, we wouldn't have most of the Bendis run, which was predicated on, Hydra, Spider-Woman, all the crazies. So yeah, this is definitely top-notch Captain America for me.
Very good. I really like this as well. Like I said, this is the first time that I've ever read it, and I really got a kick out of it. Liked it a lot. The art, as crazy it was still crazy, and for the 60s, that was pretty Hitman. So I dig that. I like the story that it wasn't wall of text, but I do feel, in hindsight, after you get to the page where Captain America, quote unquote, dies, and you just see reaction shots, I felt like some of the action may have been a little, taking a shortcut and just describing instead of showing. But overall, I thought this was good. And if you do check down The Strange Death of Captain America, or as it's listed, Tomorrow You Die Tonight, or Tomorrow You Live, Tonight I Die, I would highly recommend going and checking it out.
I do have one correction. I misspoke. It's not an epic collection. It's actually Marvel Visionaries Steranko, which I think collects almost everything he did in like 145 pages at Marvel. So
cool.
So yeah, Marvel Visionary Steranko, not Captain America Epic Collection, in case you're trying to follow what I said. Thank you, Drive-Thru.
Thank you, everyone. That wraps it up for this issue. Thank you for listening. If you found value in the show, we'd love for you to join us on our Patreon page, where you can listen to the Major Spoilers Podcast pre-show. We talk a little bit about Cape Crusader, a little bit about TMNT Mutant Mayhem, and a little bit about a wrestling game that Matthew might be interested in. You can pick that up when you join us at the silver level membership, $5 a month. Very few things can you get of high quality for $5 a month. You can find it all over at patreon.com/major spoilers. Go sign up today. Next week on the show, it's Super World Comics. Why? Because apparently it's Hugo Gernsback's birthday, and also because we know that you love comics and we do too, and we will talk with you soon.
If I had the X-ray vision of a Superman, I could save a few bucks and stand around and read through the covers of the comics on the stand. But although every other page would be backwards, I suppose, I could still read the evens and the odds. Well, I don't know. Guess I haven't thought this all the way through. Plus, as soon as the comic book store guy knew, they kicked my butt out on the corner. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. Think about a better way. If I was hulking green or gray, I could just bust through that brick wall, take their comic books away. But then the little meat would deal with all the tanks and bombs and guns. Have you ever tried to read a series with all that going on? Guess I need to rethink this plan. How would I back and board my comics with such huge hands? Guess I already told ya. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. If I was Stark Raven, rich like a man of iron, I might not be surprised to find that I might actually have the heart cold to follow an entire storyline. Would I really even need to read up on all those escapades? I mean, who needs such distractions when your sister's such a babe? But the downside is such a beast. Being shot up in a fun, be in the Middle East with a gang sign throwing soldier. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What a major spoiler. Whoa, 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 whoa. What a major spoiler.
This podcast is copyright 2024 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.